Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Stupiracy. My name is Tim McKernan. That is Scott Rizzuto. And today we're getting dark, brother. I mean real dark. Riz, I'm going to ask this question. It's not a pleasant topic, but I think I have an obligation to our audience to do so. The worst ways to die.
Oh, man.
It seems like you're ready to go on this.
Oh, yeah. I talk about this a lot on my radio show.
What do you got?
I mean, there's being thrown into a wood chipper.
Fargo.
There's being drawn and quartered.
Drawn and quartered. Now, I think I know what that is, but would you mind?
That's when you would,
does that involve horses?
Yes, that involves the horses. So you'd, tie your arms to a horse, to one horse. You tie your legs to another horse, and then
just pull you apart.
Mm-hmm. 4 horses would be involved. That's That's the quartering.
Yep.
Drowning. Being set on fire.
Nice. William Wallace at the end of Braveheart was supposedly the real historical figure, was disemboweled.
Yeah.
That seems like
there's all these, medieval.
Telling you.
These medieval, the Iron Maiden, or, when they would tie you to a canoe and slather you with honey and milk. They would tie your arms and legs.
I've never heard this one. What do we got? What do we got going on? What do we got? What's going on here?
So they would tie your arms and legs to a canoe, but they would first have you consume copious amounts of honey and make you drink milk. And they would slather honey and milk all over you and then push you out into wherever, swampland.
Oh.
And then have all the bugs consume you.
Oh, wow. This one darker than I anticipated.
There's the brazen bull. Have you heard of that one?
No, I mean, holy crap. You're loaded for bear here.
Yeah, it was like a cast iron bull where it could fit a body inside. And the person who was being executed, we put inside the belly of this cast iron bull, or whatever metal it was made out of. They would light a fire underneath it and heat you up. And the smoke of you cooking would come out of the bull's nose.
Oh my goodness. This is all medieval. This isn't like going on
medieval,
like
torture. Awful. Of course, the rack and the wheel where they would break your bones. I mean,
okay, I don't. What's going on in the rack and the wheel? Is this 2 separate things?
I mean, the rack, they would kind of stretch you out and keep stretching you until your bones would snap. And they would go notch by notch, stretching you out.
What about the wheel? I dare ask.
The wheel is when again, this is a way to kind of break every bone in your body, but they would attach you to a wheel and it would spin until you kind of broke into pieces.
Oh my goodness.
All this stuff is available readily on the internet. I get into sometimes these vortexes.
I like that you're calling it a vortex.
A vortex of like one thing leads to another.
Sure. It sounds so much better than rabbit hole. Rabbit hole is cliche. Vortex is like, oh, this is kind of sophisticated.
I spiral into this. Okay, I read about the brazen bull. Now what's next? Leading to the canoe, tied up there with the honey and the milk.
I mean, when's the last time somebody was sent into the swamp on the canoe? I mean, we're talking like 1,000 years ago, or is this like...
This is medieval stuff.
This is medieval. All right.
This is medieval stuff.
Well, I mean, I got something that I thought might be the worst way to go, although you might have just put 5 or 6 in front of me.
What do you got?
Well, this took place in July of 1184. Ladies and gentlemen, today, the Erfurt Latrine Disaster. What was it? Find out on the other side of the break here on Stupiracy. Welcome back to Stupiracy. Today, talking about Riz, the Erfurt Latrine Disaster.
So that's E-R-F-U-R-T.
I actually went online to try to get the pronunciation. It's German. Erfurt?
Erfurt?
Yeah, I think
that's
Erfurt? That's right. Here we go. It's going up.
It's on the board.
Once it goes up, it can never be taken down.
The Erfurt
Latrine
Disaster.
Have you heard of this?
Well, I know what a latrine is.
Sure.
And
you know what a disaster is?
I know what a disaster is.
Well, here's what happened.
I thought, dropping your phone down the latrine, that's a disaster.
Nope. This is when people go down the latrine.
Oh, God.
Yep. Well, it happened in July of 1184 when a group of European nobles gathered in a church to settle a land dispute. And, well, suffice it to say, all hell broke loose. Now, I had never, up until researching for today's edition of Stupiracy, really wondered how people disposed of excrement back in the day. I sometimes think about like our founding fathers with a lantern going out to the woods, but I don't really go back into like the 15th or 16th century.
Yeah, you've been camping.
Camping is an easy one, but I guess everybody was essentially camping.
Everybody back then was camping.
Everybody was camping. Well, so the monks had this church in Erfurt. I really did go to get a pronouncer on that. I think that's it.
Erfurt.
Erfurt. It's in Germany. And they had this land dispute in which there were people going back and forth in the Roman Empire. And in a way to settle it, they met at this church. The church was the legendary Petersburg Citadel. It was deeply intertwined with the history of the city. And so the incident involved a sizable number of noblemen and high-ranking officials. And they got together to try to settle what had become a heated land dispute. At the time, Erfurt was ruled by King Heinrich VI, but he went by Henry.
Okay.
Back of the baseball card, I guess, of the Hohenstaufen
Sounds good to me.
dynasty. The Hohenstaufens. Big years for the Hohenstaufens.
So I bet you that's an H and an O with the two little dots over the
They
O.
didn't include the umlaut.
Okay.
I love the umlaut. He was one of the German kings who reigned over the territory during the Middle Ages. This is King Heinrich going by Henry. It was a period of great political strife brought on by constant power struggles between feudal nobles and religious leaders of the Roman Catholic Church. One such conflict erupted between Conrad of Wittelsbach. I'm glad I'm hitting all these. Who was the Archbishop of Mainz. And Ludwig III, the Landgrave of Thuringia.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you. It's unclear what exactly prompted the conflict, but it most likely had to do with a land dispute or issues over land control. So they get together through the order of the Roman Empire at this church. And a bunch of people, because it's not like you can listen to a live broadcast of it, they want to see how this is going to be settled because it's been tense. So they announce it's going to be at this church. July 1184, brother. It's going down.
Okay, so we're going to gather in the church. We're going to hammer out this peace deal. We're going to figure this out. All the heads of the areas are going to be there. We got an audience.
All the people from around Germany are going to get together. Now, they didn't anticipate the size of the crowd, and they didn't anticipate what could possibly go wrong. And this gets us back to the manner with which people, predating us, predating our founding fathers, the United States of America, going back to the 1184 time period, how did they dispose of waste? Latrines.
I mean, latrine and a hole.
Away we go.
Right.
Well,
there's no modern plumbing. So.
That's right. So there's just when
I flush the toilet, it becomes somebody else's problem.
That's exactly right. Well, here at the church, it was all just boiling in the basement.
Right.
Well, here's what happened. In July of 1184, the room's floor suddenly collapsed into the monastery's latrine. So decades worth of monks' fecal matter was awaiting the guests. Pastor Leitzman of Tusenhausen.
So they were in the basement doing this, and then above them was the latrine?
They were upstairs talking it over about the land dispute. I guess maybe the people were bulky. I'm not sure. The floor broke, and down they went
into the
decades of monks' fecal
down they go
rewards. Right. So that's where you get to Pastor Leitzman of Tunzenhausen, who did some research on the little-known historical event years ago, and he wrote that many of the meeting's participants plunged down into the lower cesspool.
Yikes.
At least 60 nobles died in the incident, but it's been estimated that the number of men may have been closer to 100. Ludwig, whose dispute with the archbishop had been the focus of the meeting, survived purely by chance. The king and the archbishop, meanwhile, also survived since they had withdrawn into one of the room's distant nooks. They had nooks in the latrine.
Maybe having like a sidebar, like, hey, king, let's go, let's have a sidebar over here while they were there.
That might explain it, because I was wondering, like, if you're going to build a latrine, why would you have like a viewing area? You know what I mean? That's what I was thinking the nook was. Man, you just reasoned it out. So they're having a little side conversation. Let's work this out.
Yeah.
Let's give him this and that.
Away from other ears.
Uh-huh.
And just so happened, luck should have it.
They're good.
The floor gives out.
And then everybody's down there in the king and the
muck of the mire.
The muck of the mire. They withdrew into the room's distant nooks to discuss the present political issue, and both were able to cling to the iron rails of a window.
Whoa.
They held on for dear life until they were rescued. However, others were not so fortunate, and the manner with which they passed, to me,
gruesome.
Perhaps before I knew about this canoe thing.
This is death by drowning in human waste.
That's correct. We will tell you who survived, but the others who passed and how, when we come back on Stupiracy. Welcome back to Stupiracy, Riz. We're talking about the Erfurt Latrine Disaster of 1184.
Sounds horrible.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. You go to a meeting, you want to get this land dispute settled. The next thing you know, you're swimming in human waste.
Right. So the weight of the people had the floor give way, and they're all down into the latrine.
That's correct. Minus a couple people who were in a nook.
Into the collection of,
decades of the monks' waste at this church. The disaster killed some of the meeting's more famous participants, such as nobles Heinrich von Schwarzburg, Hesse Gosmar von Ziegenhain. This is very specific.
That.
Yep, nailed it. Frederick von Ebenberg, Burkhard von Wartburg, Frederick von Kirchberg, and Berenger von Mellingen, just to name a few of the known victims of the Erfurt Latrine Disaster.
Of all the ways to go to.
But here's
never did they imagine.
Some who you might consider to be fortunate died upon impact. Others, perhaps maybe not as fortunate, would die in one of two other ways. They drowned in the jello-like... That one hit you hard.
Yeah, because I'm thinking there's always room for jello.
Lime your go-to?
Ugh.
You like orange?
I like
Kids like the cherry?
I like the cherry one.
Right. They drowned in the jello-like latrine, or others suffocated by the pool of the filth they fell into. Pastor Leitzman, our source for today's Stupiracy, believes more may have died by the latter.
Yeah, well, I've heard of stories of farmers falling into the pits where they collect the cow manure. Mm-hmm. And it's not that they drown or anything, it's the methane.
That's it, the suffocation.
They suffocate.
That's right. Now, because of this latrine disaster in 1184, there were actually impactful changes. During the Middle Ages, the sewage systems of latrines in Europe were a far cry from the comfortable and private toilets we are used to in modern times. Back in the medieval days, latrines were built in whatever empty space could be spared with the most basic system of all, building a hole or pit and letting the waste drop into it. But now they went on to change, in part because of what took place in the Erfurt Latrine disaster. Unfortunately, in the case of this one, though, the cesspit for gathering waste was located directly below the meeting of the nobles, and...
Well, if anything could come from tragedy.
That's right. It would be a sewage system.
It would be a sewage system, yes.
And that is the lasting impact of the Erfurt Latrine Disaster of 1184.
Many died so we could go to the bathroom in peace and not worry about falling into the cesspool of poo-poo and pee-pee.
You tied a bow on it, and you were rising above, and then right at the end, just, you know what, I can't.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go right down there with Heinrich. Ladies and gentlemen, consider yourselves educated and also hopefully grateful for the sewage systems we now have, courtesy of those who passed at the Erfurt Latrine Disaster of 1184. You have now learned on Stupiracy.